I'm Rebecca Morris, the literacy coach for the elementary schools in the Gettysburg Area School District. And today my goal is to tell you a little bit about one of the programs we're using with our 4th and 5th grade students called Vocabulary Surge. Vocabulary Surge will be a vocabulary routine program that your students will participate in for about 15 minutes each day. This program is important because it's going to provide students with a process and the skills to figure out the meaning of bigger unknown words that they will inevitably encounter when they're reading. By using Vocabulary Surge, we're also going to help expand our students' vocabulary knowledge. It's going to help create accurate and fluent readers, which we know that if we have accurate and fluent readers, we have a much better chance of comprehending what we read. Morphemes are the key to the program Vocabulary Surge. Vocabulary Surge, additionally, before we look at anything else with the program, is important because it's not just when we read a book in reading class that Vocabulary Surge is going to help us. It's going to help us across all content areas and also with our career readiness skills, because there's so many careers that involve really in-depth knowledge of vocabulary, such as Latin and Greek that we're going to be studying. If we take a look at the PA Common Core standards, we do see vocabulary with morpheme instruction pop up in our Common Core standards, so this program is aligned to what we need to teach with the PA Common Core. I've highlighted those areas for you on the screen, and this is for our 4th grade curriculum. And as we progress to the next page, you'll see it again pop up in our 5th grade standards for curriculum. So we said that morphemes are the important component of 95% core. What is a morpheme, and what types of morphemes will your student be learning? Morphemes are our smallest meaningful part of any word. Morphemes can come from 3 different layers of English language that we'll talk about here in a moment. But the reason we're using morphemes is because a student's understanding of morphemes greatly increases their understanding of what they're reading to comprehend a text. It's actually, researchers have found, one of the best ways to predict a student's reading comprehension at the 5th grade level is by looking at their morpheme knowledge. And while it's important that we teach the meaning of keywords and content words before, during, and after reading, students are always going to encounter unknown words in text. We can't possibly pre-teach all of the words that students will encounter that they have not seen before or understand what the word means. We'd also know that looking words up in a dictionary has been shown to have a limited benefit for students because oftentimes there's other unknown words in those dictionary definitions. So to help our students become successful readers, we really want to use Vocabulary Surge with these morpheme components to help our students comprehend the smallest meaningful parts of a word, to comprehend a word overall, and then also comprehend a text that they're reading. Here on the screen, you'll see 3 different layers of influences we've had throughout time on our English language that we're going to be studying with students. The first layer of language that you see up here is our Anglo-Saxons, and I'll give you a quick little history lesson to give you some information about this. The Old English period of language was when a variety of Germanic groups settled into parts of England. These groups included the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes. The Anglo-Saxon was the dominant language used during this extensive period. The language focused on words for events of daily life and objects or people who were part of that life. The period continued until the time of the Norman conquest and the conquest of Normandy, when William the Conqueror successfully invaded England. At that time, French language was brought in, and now we had a Norman French language that was the official use. English language continued to grow as we go into the Middle English period. At that time, we have a Latin influence. Our Middle English period was one that was estimated to have more than 10,000 French words transferred into the English language. Some compound words were created, and then Latin became a very large influencer of language during this Middle English period. Finally, we have our modern English that continued to expand into what we now have as our present English. In the early part of this period, it was around the time of Shakespeare, and we also had the invention of the printing press. So we started to have written language. So this was the first time technology brought in for us a reason for words to have certain spellings and to be consistent. As students study the words this year, they're going to learn how these different times in history of the English language, these different time periods, have impacted words that they see and work with every day. For example, I mentioned that the Anglo-Saxon layer brings our short words for everyday things. Words like girl, boy, farming words like pig, sheep, or other everyday objects like light, desk. What the Anglo-Saxons also gave us was silent letter spellings. They used to pronounce words very differently than we do today in our modern English, but with the invention of that printing press and needing to have standard spelling, we now sometimes have silent letters that used to be pronounced by those Anglo-Saxons, but no longer are in our modern English. An example would be in the word me. There's that silent K at the beginning. The Anglo-Saxons also gave us what is known as our compound words. So our students in our very primary grades have learned about compound words in first grade, second grade, and this is where we have two very simple words combined together to make a larger word, like dog plus house means doghouse. The other way that our students are primarily going to study longer Anglo-Saxon words is when we start to layer in Latin. We can add Latin prefixes and suffixes to make longer words. That brings us to the next layer, that's the Latin layer. And in vocabulary search, our students are going to learn many different roots that you can see here in the middle, like claim, prefixes, and suffixes. And they're going to learn how these different word parts change the meaning of a word. The last layer that we're going to look at the end of the year for our students is this Greek layer of language. Greek is word parts that can't stand alone that have been given to us in our modern English today. Some of those examples you can see here in the word astrology. These words pop up a lot in science class. And I'm willing to bet that students have seen a lot of Greek word parts before and just not known that they were Greek or what those word parts meant. Here's an example of a Greek word part or morpheme called chron, which means time. They see this in books and movies they might watch every day, like the Chronicles of Narnia. They're asked to put things in chronological order in social studies class. It pops up in other words like chronic or synchronize like they might hear in music class. So we see these Greek word parts all the time. Our goal is to attach meaning to them, so anytime they encounter a new word with these Greek parts, they're going to be able to figure out the meaning of that new word. So if you had a 4th or 5th grade student come home and say, "Hey, Mom and Dad," or to any grown-up in the house, "Guess what it is that I'm learning at school? I'm learning Greek and Latin." They were telling the truth, and I'm really excited to see how our students' vocabularies grow this year by using Vocabulary Surge in the classroom.